And it is hurtful. Like, I think that's okay to say sometimes. Yeah. It hurts. Yeah. Even, it doesn't matter if it is someone who is credible or someone with a big platform, or if it's someone in their mom's basement just firing off.
Mm-hmm. Everyone dislikes Malika Andrews. In the past few years, no NBA analyst has encountered a public perception shift as dramatic as that of Malika Andrews. At first, she was warmly welcomed as CSN's new star, offering a refined and professional vibe to the network. Yet, as time went on, the favorable view began to deteriorate, with an increasing number of people doubting her intentions and methods. Her recent controversial appearance on M. Rosen's mental health series has only intensified the criticism, providing a clearer narrative for opponents. Many now view Malika as a classic example of a wolf in sheep's clothing, projecting one persona publicly.
HR did a full investigation into it. They told me that I had done nothing wrong that required any kind of discipline. Then 6 months later, they actually gave me a contract extension and a raise. And they actually elevated Maria in that same period as well. So I thought we had put things behind us. And unfortunately, I think there were still some people who had bad feelings, and they held on to this tape for a year, just kept it in their pocket. And then when there was a point they wanted some leverage with their own situations, they fed it to the press.
While her actions reveal a contrasting reality, it stings, and it's fair to acknowledge that sometimes it hurts, regardless of whether it involves a reputable figure or someone anonymously venting online. Malika's career appeared to kick off amid controversy and may ultimately conclude similarly, following the contentious dismissal of Rachel Nichols from ESPN, who asserted that the network's elevation of Maria Taylor was more about addressing their history of poor diversity than talent. Human Resources conducted a thorough investigation and concluded that I had committed no wrongdoing warranting punishment. 6 months later, I received a contract extension and a raise while Maria was also promoted during that time. I believed we had moved past the issue. Unfortunately, some individuals seemed to cling to negative sentiments and kept that recording for a year, just waiting to use it against me. When they found themselves in a position where they needed leverage regarding their own situations, they leaked information to the press following the release of a recording that had been held by the network. This prompted the swift release of Nichols and allowed Malika Andrews to step in as the sideline reporter for the NBA Finals. During this period, criticism was undeniably directed at Rachel and ESPN due to the controversy.
The fact that we are sitting here debating whether somebody else should have been suspended or not, we are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women. That is not why we are here.
And their responses to the recording. However, Malika's reaction appeared exclusively positive. She undoubtedly put in significant effort to reach her current status, and in terms of on-camera presence, she typically excels as an interviewer, adding value to segments more than some other less-liked members of the ESPN team. However, a notable pattern emerged after the firing of Emi Udoka, who was dismissed following inappropriate relations with a junior staff member. Malika stated the following while discussing the issue with Stephen A. regarding the revelation of the woman's identity and possible organizational punishment. "We are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women. That's not our purpose." While this statement on its own wasn't the most shocking, people criticized Malika for seemingly defending the anonymous woman, suggesting that both parties share responsibility. This perspective was indeed odd, especially considering that the internet had begun circulating images of all the women associated with the Celtics in a rather unsettling manner. The essence of her argument for leaving him alone was somewhat valid, but she began to lose support with her remarks about interim coach Joe Mazzola's past 3 seasons, following his previous 3 years at Fairmont State after playing for West Virginia from 2006 to 2011. Now, he could potentially be the NBA's youngest head coach at just 34 years old. It's important to highlight that Mazzola had 2 arrests during his time at West Virginia, once in 2008 for underage drinking and aggravated assault, for which he pleaded guilty and paid a fine, and again in 2009 for domestic battery, stemming from an incident at a Morgantown bar.
And we'd be remiss not to also mention that Mazzola was arrested twice at West Virginia, once in 2008 for underage drinking and aggravated assault. He pled guilty, paid a fine, and then again in 2009 for domestic battery after an incident at Morgantown bar. The domestic battery case never went to trial. It was settled in August of 2009. He paid a $100 fine and court costs, plus had to do 40 hours of community service. Now, That was 13 years ago. He settled and paid both fines. So, Woj, why are the Celtics choosing him as their next?
The domestic battery charge never went to trial and was resolved in August 2009 with a $100 fine and court costs, along with 4 hours of community service. That occurred 13 years ago, and he settled those matters. So why are the Celtics opting for him as their next head coach? I mean, you wouldn't be wrong for not bringing up that Mazzola had a drunken altercation as a teenager over a decade ago, with the charges being dismissed. Since then, he has committed himself to his faith and career. He was appointed head coach because he earned it, highlighting charges that didn't go to court and
Shifting gears, former Michigan State star Adrian Payne was shot and killed in Orlando, Florida, early Monday morning, the Orange County Sheriff's Office said. And Payne was the 15th pick by the Atlanta Hawks in 2014, played 4 seasons in the NBA with multiple teams. In 2018, he was waived by the Magic after he was named in a report by ESPN's Outside the Lines that he'd been involved in an alleged sexual assault at Michigan State in 2010. No charges were filed in that case. Prior to playing in the NBA, Payne was a member of the All Big Ten second team in 2 of his 4 seasons with Michigan State.
Surviving a college bar fight immediately after a grown man achieves his dream job to imply he's some violent individual is utterly unfair. He secured the position because the organization believes he's the best choice available. I don't even understand what her concern is here. If I were in a similar position as Kenny Beecham and you all watched me appear on ESPN, then suddenly one of you mentioned my underage drinking citations from college to embarrass me, I would be furious with you. Furthermore, the Mazzola hiring wasn't the only occasion when Malika acted inappropriately, nor was it the most egregious. Following the tragic death of Adrian Payne, Malika took it upon herself to raise more unverified accusations at the most inopportune time. To switch topics, former Michigan State standout Adrian Payne was shot and killed in Orlando, Florida, early Monday morning, according to the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Payne was selected as the 15th pick by the Atlanta Hawks in 2014 and enjoyed 4 seasons in the NBA with various teams. In 2018, he was waived by the Magic after being
Get your finger out of my armpit. We're just happy to see Jalen Rose welcoming in the man with the best hair in television.
I don't know why her armpit's on the top of her arm, but she's got to get that checked out. She hit my boy Jalen Rose with a Me Too on live TV like he was trying to cop a feel on TV. Like, this shit's crazy, bro.
Implicated in an alleged sexual assault at Michigan State in 2010, as reported by ESPN's Outside the Lines. No charges were ever filed regarding that incident. Before joining the NBA, Payne was named to the All-Big Ten second team in 2 of his 4 seasons at Michigan State. To reference allegations where no charges were even filed is reprehensible, and the comments on ESPN's own video confirm that no charges were brought, which means no conviction. Still, Malika chose to tarnish his reputation while covering his death. It's appalling. Malika should be criticized for how she reported on his passing. Regardless of what the producers wrote for her, she should have refused to mention negative aspects about him, even in death. It was completely unnecessary to bring up such matters. He wasn't even faced with any charges, which infuriated many people. Individuals began initiating petitions to reinstall Rachel Nichols, and honestly, this blunder was utterly dreadful, repeatedly referencing unverified allegations instead of acknowledging that he lost his life while trying to prevent a domestic altercation is absurd. This individual passed away during the mere minute of screen time he received, yet they have Malika suggesting that he ranks among the worst individuals on earth. I understand they made it clear no charges were brought, but this is how accusations consistently ruin young men's lives over and over again. Malika continued her antics, which may have hit a breaking point during the 2023 draft after Brandon Miller was picked 2nd overall. His name came up during court testimony, linked to a case involving his former teammate and another man who had been indicted for capital murder in the death of 23-year-old Gia Harris in January. The University of Alabama referred to Miller as a cooperating witness. How is this possibly
been the hardest part for me sometimes is stomaching the falsehoods, particularly, this you hate black men, or think that couldn't be farther from the truth, and using my family or the way that my family looks as some sort of evidence of that. And that is just untrue.
For sure.
And is just unkind.
Impacting, if at all, how teams are assessing him. Malik, part of the discussion. I doubt it would have been mentioned at all if it weren't for Malika raising it on national television. Now, Mike signaled something here. Of course, these allegations are serious, but again, Miller was not charged with any wrongdoing. Andrews' choice to spotlight this during his draft moment drew criticism for being inappropriate. Detractors believed it overshadowed a pivotal achievement in Miller's career. After all, one can only be drafted once, and this marks the height of success in the sport. Fans clearly see the trend and criticize Malika for repeatedly focusing on black men, especially when discussing unverified allegations unrelated to sports, which is not only inappropriate but also lacks evidence. Mentioning such issues can harm their public reputation significantly. Even Des Bryant called her out for her focus on black athletes while remaining silent during the Giddey situation. While her criticism for not covering Josh Giddey might have been slightly unfair, I doubt ESPN is consulting her on whether it's acceptable to report on white athletes due to her having a white husband. When she finally reported on the topic, viewers quickly noted how displeased she appeared, but the subject matter was quite serious for sports broadcasting. If she were smiling broadly while discussing such an issue, I would have some concerns about her professionalism. You can debate whether the backlash is directed at the right person, but it feels like she provoked the situation and then retreated when it escalated. Regarding her motivations, they seem questionable. On one side, she's fulfilling her job, yet others in similar positions don't engage in slander, creating confusion. Concerning her treatment of Jalen Rose, it's hard to argue with how messy that was. We're just pleased to see Jalen Rose with the man who has the best hair in television. I really don't understand why her armpit is so prominent on her arm. But she needs to get that situation addressed. She accused my guy, Jalen Rose, of a Me Too incident on live TV, as if he was trying to touch her inappropriately on air, which is just outrageous, man. I mean, how can you even defend that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers on her shoulder? Why fabricate this about a colleague? While Jalen would face termination following this episode, Malika wouldn't be dismissed. However, as Jalen clarified, this was simply a company layoff due to financial issues since viewership for TV has declined significantly. Still, it's tough to comprehend what her motives were, considering Malika's track record in just a couple of years on screen is genuinely remarkable. Connecting this to her recent statements, Malika expressed her feelings regarding the backlash, stating it has been challenging for her to deal with the fabrications, especially the notion that she harbors animosity towards black men, which is completely false. She also mentioned the remarks about her family's appearance as evidence, emphasizing that this is incorrect and unkind. Sure, if you're online criticizing or roasting her family, that's one thing, and calling for someone's termination is unnecessary, but playing the unkind card here is utterly ridiculous. My friend Joe just got a job with the Celtics. All this guy wants to do is pray and coach basketball. You rediscussing what he did in college, but half of it lacks evidence. That's really harsh. What's up with you, Joe? Adrian Payne was shot and passed away, yet you're still going on about unverified claims while arrangements for his funeral are being made. Brandon Miller got drafted into the NBA, fulfilling his lifelong ambition, and again, it's just allegations. Kobe scored 81 points on this guy. He's dealt with enough suffering. There was no need for that kind of treatment when he had his hand on your shoulder. I'm sure Malika has faced criticism on her timeline, and if there were real threats or anything out of line, I'd never condone that. I wouldn't even endorse her losing her job, but slipping up like that and playing the victim is just absurd. Slandering the dogs was unkind, too, towards Malika. I don't dislike her as an analyst. I've seen many of her interviews and feel she contributes to the network. I understand she might want to support women in her commentary, and that's her choice. But dragging someone down with baseless accusations isn't right. At least take criticisms in stride while you're at it. Thanks for tuning in. You've made it this far. Catch you all in the next one. Peace.